hours after Israel launched one of the most aggressive airstrikes on strategic sites in Iran. The world wondered how Tehran would respond. It didn't take long to get the answer. That night, Israel's air defense system was forced to work beyond its limits. From western Iran, hundreds of missiles and drones were launched simultaneously towards the heart of Israel. Tel Aviv, a city that has long been considered a symbol of economic strength and stability, became one of the main targets that surprised not only the number of projectiles fired, but also the speed and scale of the coordinated attacks. The radar signal was full, in just a matter of minutes. Thousands of civilians rushed to shelters. What happened that night not only shook Israel, but also sent a sharp message to the world. This conflict has entered a new phase. Tensions between Israel and Iran are nothing new. However, the latest escalation began when Israel, with the tacit support of the United States and its allies, launched air operations into several areas in Iran. Nuclear facilities, military headquarters, and strategic communications centers were targeted. A number of Iranian scientists and officials were reportedly also victims. The reason given was that Iran was suspected of accelerating the development of nuclear weapons. But until the attack was launched, there was no concrete evidence. Even the IAEA World Nuclear Organization has not issued an official statement about the serious violations committed by Iran. In other words, these accusations do not stand on a solid foundation. Many observers call this Israeli move a form of unilateral provocation and not a preventive measure. This attack was carried out without the approval of the international community. The tyrants also called it open aggression. And responding to it is their right to defend their sovereignty. More than 150 ballistic missiles including Shab-3 and Sejal were launched from Iran towards Israel. Plus about 100 kamikaze and reconnaissance drones. All were directed at various strategic targets in Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, the Negev military base, and infrastructure in Ashdod and Be'er-Sheva. According to preliminary reports from the field, dozens of missiles managed to penetrate the Iron Dome defense and hit several cities. In Tel Aviv, smoke billowed from the industrial area and explosions were heard repeatedly in the southern districts of the city. Sirens blared incessantly. Residents ran to bunkers in the cities of Ashkelon and Nedovo. Several buildings were destroyed, fires burned residential areas, ambulances and rescue teams were milling around the streets. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the series of explosions and bright lights in the night sky showed how intense the air battle was. Although most of the projectiles were intercepted, the sheer volume of simultaneous attacks overwhelmed the defense system. The Israeli military itself admitted that this was one of the most complex and coordinated attacks they had ever experienced. In an effort to respond to this attack, Israel deployed all its best air defense systems from Iron Dome, David's Sling to Arrow Trig. Israel's allies, the United States, Britain, and France also took action. They helped through satellite detection, cross-regional radar, and several interception actions at U.S. military bases in the Middle East. The Israeli government claims that around 80 to 85% of the missiles were successfully repelled. This certainly shows the effectiveness of their system. However, the Iranian military said otherwise. According to Tehran's official claim, dozens of ballistic missiles managed to hit command centers, military infrastructure and vital industrial areas in Tel Aviv. They even released videos and satellite images which they said showed real damage at several strategic points. A number of independent analysts have indeed confirmed that there was major damage in several city districts. But until now it is not certain whether all of this was caused by direct missiles or fragments of projectiles destroyed in the air. What is clear is that Israel's defense system no longer looks perfect. Layered and simultaneous attacks like this have managed to expose its gaps. And the world now realizes that even the most sophisticated technology can be paralyzed if pressed massively and suddenly. The UN Security Council immediately held an emergency session. The United States urged Israel not to retaliate excessively, but continued to emphasize that they support Israel's right to defend itself. On the other hand, Russia and China called for an immediate cessation of violence. Gulf countries such as Qatar and the United Arab Emirates also expressed concern about the potential for the conflict to spread to their regions. The President of the United States held an emergency meeting with intelligence and military chiefs. Meanwhile, humanitarian organizations began to prepare for a potential new refugee crisis if this war escalates further. This attack proves one important thing. Iran now has the ability to strike long range with dangerous accuracy and volume. They are able to design complex attack schemes, combining drones, missiles, and high-volume saturation that is enough to disrupt enemy defense systems. For Israel, although most of the missiles were successfully intercepted, the psychological effects and strategic losses were still felt. And going forward, the pressure will come not only from Iran, but also from Hezbollah in the north or other Iranian proxies in Iraq and Syria. In other words, high-tech asymmetric warfare has begun. Iran has shown that it will not sit idly by under attack, and Israel must now decide. Will it retaliate more forcefully or withdraw to diplomacy? The world is holding its breath, hoping that the next step is not the next missile launch button, but the opening of the negotiating door. But in the Middle East, as so often, hopes for peace too often depend on who shoots last. This video is presented for educational and informational purposes based on facts and balanced analysis. We do not promote violence, hatred, or hate speech against any group. This content respects YouTube's policies on hate speech, violent content, provocation, and misleading information. YouTube policy references and laws related to YouTube's community guidelines, the Indonesian Electronic Information and Transactions Act, and the International Convention on Human Rights.